Here we are again, dear friends, on this journey of life, listening to the whispers to our souls. Today, as I wander this park, an angel and a Katrina accompany me, filling me with a story that I now pass on to you and to your loved ones. Here is how the story begins. Sarah's sisters tugged on her wrists, and when she refused to follow them, they yanked her onto the cobblestone street in front of a group of mariachis that gleefully sang about a mariachi loco who loved to dance. Her sisters clapped, the crowd cheered, a group of women formed a rotating circle and moved their bodies to the festive rhythm. And it was all too much for her. Way too much. Sarah stepped back onto the sidewalk with a rapid wave of her hands. "This is our chance," said Alba, the oldest. "Start moving those bony hips." Alba demonstrated how to sway by swinging her wide hips and flabby torso from side to side. "You're embarrassing me," said Sarah, cheeks beet red. "Andale," said Alba, dancing around Sarah's hunched-over body. "Nobody's paying attention. Move an arm, move a leg, move an eyelid, move something." Sarah's look of distress resembled that of a child facing a giant needle in a doctor's office. She backed away and made her escape into a souvenir shop, where tourists showed no interest in dancing or singing. "Where are you going?" said Lolita, the youngest and the prettiest. "You're spoiling the moment." Not about to give up, her sisters wrenched her wrists, but Sarah immediately squirmed out of their control. "Nuh-uh," said Sarah, shaking her head. "You ain't getting me out there." "Absolutely nobody knows you," said Alba. "Look around." That was the wrong thing to say, because Sarah did look around. Hundreds of people lined the sidewalk, maybe thousands, some sitting on plastic chairs, most of them standing and cheering, almost all of them filming with their cell phones. "One of those videos is bound to be loaded on YouTube," said Sarah. "Really?" said Lolita. "That's what you're worried about? Just get out there and do a little dance. We didn't come all the way for nothing." "Yeah, I'll go ahead," said Sarah, taking out her cell phone. "I'll film you for the folks back home." Alba threw up her flabby arms. "Ay, hermanita, you're doing what you always do. You stay behind. You don't interact with the magnificent moment God is giving us. This time you have to join us." "Yeah, this was your idea in the first place," said Lolita. "And now you're going all aguada on us." "I told Sonny I only wanted to see the mojigangas," said Sarah. "That travel show made them look cool. That's all I wanted to see. I never said nothing about dancing." "It's not even dancing," said Alba. "It's more like walking with a little rhythm. Mira." And Alba did a little shuffle with her feet. "I said no," said Sarah with a forceful tone, and walked away from her sisters and toward a man selling fruit cups. She always walked away from invitations to dance, especially invitations to dance in public. Why did her sisters think she would accept their offer in Mexico? Because they spent money on plane tickets and hotels? Did they think that because nobody knew them, somehow that would ease Sarah's anxiety? She could not fathom their reasoning, their hope, their insistence. They, more than anyone, witnessed how she begged their parents not to send her to quinceañeras and weddings when they were teenagers. They saw how she pressed her head on the table all night, only raising it to say, "I'm bored, can we go home now?" They were the ones who scolded her in the car, more than her parents. "Why didn't you talk? Why didn't you dance? You just sat there and read a book. We don't know how many times people asked us if something was wrong with you." "And what did you tell them?" said Sarah all those years ago. "That you were studying for a test," said Alba. "Not me," said Lolita. "I told them the truth, that you're a weird little goth girl." "I don't even wear black," said Sarah. "Well, you should," said Lolita. At least we'd have a better excuse for your weirdness." When Alba and Lolita caught up with her, Sarah was already munching on a stick of cucumber sprinkled with chili powder and lime. Before they could speak, pounding drums and rattling conchas announced the arrival of men and women wearing turquoise vests and plumed headdresses, men and women who spun and stomped and leapt and stepped forward and backward. Flapping behind them came Mexican flags, each held by proud adolescents in their school uniforms. A few steps away, old men carried banners of Our Lady and the Sacred Heart of Jesus, shouting, "Que viva Cristo Rey! Que viva la Virgen de Guadalupe!" Clanging metal announced marching knights, some dressed in silver armor and some in black, knights that thrust their blades toward their enemy only to be blocked by the opposing weapon. Knights locked into each other and shoved each other away, replaying the same scene 50 more times. A loudspeaker then filled the street with the Ave Maria as a float drifted by, depicting St. Michael the Archangel standing on a cloud with sword lifted high. People on both sides of the street cheered and whistled, as this was the reason they had come to San Miguel de Allende, to celebrate their patron saint. The cheers were soon overwhelmed by middle-aged men pounding on their bass drums and blowing on trumpets and trombones. Giant puppets emerged with their giant heads and giant grins, twisting their bodies and swinging their flimsy arms from side to side. Skinny human legs held them up and clumsily moved to the rhythm, sometimes bumping into other puppets and into pedestrians who got in the way. The three sisters clapped. Sarah's eyes brightened. "The mojigangas do look cooler in person," said Sarah. "Somebody film me for Sunny and the kids." She stood in front of the Frida Kahlo and Diego Rivera puppets, who readily posed with her. She thanked them and scurried out of the way as other puppets entered the scene. Black and red demons, Cantinflas, Batman, and Las Catrinas, those skeleton women in their long, flowing floral dresses, displaying so much color, so much beauty. "I need to buy me a Katrina figurine before we leave," said Lolita. "Don't you think you have enough morbid pictures and statues in your house?" said Alba. And what about you?" said Lolita, poking Alba's mushy back. "You got an angel in every corner." "Angels are protectors," said Alba. "Skeletons and monsters are not." Lolita scoffed. "You got your protectors and I got mine." Sarah finished off her fruit cup and wondered when the endless flow of people would end. Had all of Mexico showed up for this celebration? After an hour of viewing numerous bands and mariachi groups and more dancers than she could count, she was beginning to think so. "Aren't you glad you came?" said Alba, nudging Sarah with a smile. "I guess so," said Sarah. "But I still think Sunny was exaggerating. I didn't need to get away. I didn't need fun and relaxation. Just because I lost my balance and breath one day, he acts like it's all the time." Lolita checked her hair in a compact mirror and said, "Maybe he just needed a break from you." "Que mala eres," said Alba, tapping Lolita's shoulder. Lolita checked her teeth. "You have to admit, Sarah here ain't easy to live with." "She's just special," said Alba, obviously careful about her word choice. "Being picky about where I go and who I spend my time with can't be a bad thing," said Sarah. "But it sure can wear a person down," said Lolita, closing her compact mirror and looking Sarah in the eyes. "Right, Alba?" "Hey, don't bring me into this," said Alba. Lolita continued, "How many times did we have to explain to our friends, she's not antisocial, just annoying?" "But we still love you," said Alba, wrapping her arm around Sarah's unsuspecting back. no matter how special you are. Sarah brought her shoulders in, feeling uncomfortable in Alba's embrace. I just don't understand why Sonny practically dragged me to the airport. Would you have come on your own? Inquired Alba. Sarah shook her head. I guess not. Exactly, said Alba. I told him to bring you in like Hannibal Lecter, tied to a dolly in a straitjacket and a muzzle, said Lolita. Very funny, said Sarah sarcastically. You've always been the funny one in the family. I'm grateful that he forced you to come, said Alba. We haven't been together like this since high school. I think we all needed this trip. And you ain't getting any younger, said Lolita. You're a mother with 2 little kids. You might as well do this now before you get stuck with PTA meetings and selling candy bars. Sarah and her sisters watched another group of puppets and middle-aged band members go by. She glanced at the time on her cell. Barely 4:08 p.m. It felt later. Much later. She didn't know how much longer she could withstand the noise pounding in her ears and the endless movement flowing before her eyes. Her face must have expressed frustration because Alba asked, "You hanging in there?" Sarah appreciated Alba locking into her arm to hold her up. "Don't worry about me," said Sarah, leaning into Alba's shoulder. "I'm more worried about all those dancers. I bet they've been dancing the whole day. What's up with so much dancing?" "I'm sure they're used to it," said Lolita, holding up her phone and filming the oncoming Aztec dancers. She panned the phone to Sarah and Alba and said, "Smile for the folks back home." Sarah and Alba broke out in smiles and waves, Sarah saying, "I love you, babe. Don't forget we volunteered to bring cupcakes for Jackie's class party." She blew a kiss into the camera. "Kiss my babies goodnight." Lolita stopped filming and surveyed the sidewalk as if in search of something. "You lose something?" said Alba. "Nah, just checking for empty seats," said Lolita. "That would be so nice right now," said Sarah, envying the people sitting on plastic white chairs. "I bet your feet are spent," said Alba, now actively looking for a resting spot. "We should have found you a place to sit hours ago. I don't know where my mind was." "I'm fine," said Sarah, as they walked down the street. "Really, Sonny exaggerates. I don't need rest." "You would think the city would put some bleachers out here," said Lolita. "At least for us lazy tourists." "Bleachers wouldn't do me any good," said Sarah. "They got no back support and they hurt my butt something awful." "Maybe we can bribe someone for their chair," said Lolita. "Or," said Sarah, "we could go back to the hotel." "Oh, no you don't," interjected Alba, pulling Sarah close to her. "We promised Sonny you would have fun, and we intend to keep our promise." "Napping and room service," said Sarah. "I can't think of anything more fun." "I've seen corpses more alive than you," said Lolita. "What a mean thing to say," said Alba. "It's true," said Lolita. "Or do I have to remind you how she never wants to go to any parties with us, never get on any scary rides, never go on haunted tours, never go on zip lines? She's basically an old woman who likes to be stuck at home doing nothing. Her poor husband, her poor kids." "That's enough," said Alba with a stern, motherly look. "It's okay," said Sarah. "She's mostly right. When we go to Fiesta, Texas, poor Sonny has to get on all the rides with the kids, even the little airplane ride because I get dizzy. I don't know why he stayed with me all these years." "Because he loves you," said Alba, "and he accepts you the way you are. Not many men out there, or women for that matter, who are willing to do that." "I'm just saying maybe you should laugh a little," said Lolita. "Dance a little. belt out a tune every now and then. Alba broke out into salsa moves as she sang out a few verses from Marc Antony's Vivir mi vida. Sarah's cheeks turned red, and she hooded her eyes with the edge of her hand. "Could you please stop embarrassing us?" said Sarah. "Lolita has a point," said Alba, ceasing her song and movements. "I've never seen you dance or heard you sing." "I've got a voice like a toad," said Sarah, "and my legs go limp the moment I step on a dance floor." "It's not about being a professional," said Lolita. "It's about having fun." "Singing and dancing aren't fun for me," said Sarah. "How do you know if you've never done it?" said Lolita. "Believe me, I know," said Sarah. "Well, maybe you should try it," said Alba. "Not for us, for Sunny, and the kids. They'd probably enjoy seeing you dancing and having fun." "I'll think about it," said Sarah, "while I'm in the hotel relaxing and watching TV." Alba and Lolita gave each other a defeated look. "Should we tell her?" said Lolita. "We better," said Alba. "Tell me what?" said Sarah. "We got a surprise for you," said Lolita. "Ooh, are you taking me to one of those natural hot springs I read about?" said Sarah. "Something better," said Alba. "What can be better than sitting in a nice thermal pool?" said Sarah. "A cold margarita," said Lolita. "How about drinking a cold margarita while sitting in a nice thermal pool?" said Sarah. They gave each other a high five in agreement, while Alba shook her head in disapproval. "You two are crazy," said Alba. "So if it's not the hot springs, what's the surprise?" said Sarah. "Duh," said Alba. "If we tell you, then it won't be a surprise." "Don't worry, sis," said Lolita. "It's going to be worth your time. Sunny helped plan it." As soon as she said those last words, she smacked her mouth shut, and Alba socked her shoulder. "Sunny's in on this," said Sarah. "He didn't want you to know," said Alba, shoving Lolita. "But Blabbermouth here spilled the beans, so I hope you don't get upset with him." "Why would I get upset?" said Sarah. "I don't know," said Alba. "I guess don't get upset if you don't like the surprise." "Is it that bad?" said Sarah. "Of course not," said Lolita. "Sunny said it's something you wanted to do." Alba poked Lolita's arm with her elbow. "Will you stop giving out clues?" Okay, said Lolita, rubbing her arm. "I'll be quiet before Alba turns me into her personal piñata." "So you're not going to tell me what it is?" said Sarah. "Trust us," said Alba. "Lolita, lead the way." Sarah and Alba followed Lolita down the cobblestone streets, a Lolita led by Google Maps, too blindly for Sarah's tastes. "Watch out for the curb," she warned Lolita. "Oh my God, a pothole," she said on another occasion. "Lolita, a scooter," she shouted just in time to avoid an accident. "Stop worrying about me," said Lolita, somehow maneuvering down a crowded plaza with eyes still plastered to her phone screen. "Instead, take in the view." Sarah felt like she was walking in a picture postcard as they passed colonial-style homes of bright yellows and pinks, where violet bougainvilleas hung from balconies like Rapunzel's hair, waiting to lift them into a magic hideaway. She dared to look up when standing in front of the pink cantera spires of the main church, spires that intimidated even those used to city skyscrapers. She grabbed onto Alba's arm as dizziness set the world in motion. "You okay?" said Alba. "I just need to catch my balance," said Sarah, patting beads of sweat off her forehead. "Those church towers are something else." "Could you imagine climbing to the top?" said Alba. "That's on tomorrow's agenda," said Lolita. Sarah and Alba looked at each other, gestured a thumbs down and gave an emphatic, "Count us out." Sarah stuck close to her sisters as they squeezed through dense crowds and shouting vendors in El Jardín, the city's main plaza, where trees were trimmed to look like massive lampshades and wrought iron benches were unfortunately already occupied. The amount of people and noise proved to be too much for Sarah. As they finally made their way out of the plaza, she wiped perspiration off her brow, though the air was crisp and cool. Walking up hilly and narrow streets only increased the lines of sweat rolling down her cheeks. Poor Alba had to stop to catch her breath, which Sarah took full advantage of. She rested her hands on a yellow wall and bent over to replenish her oxygen supply. Lolita showed no mercy and pushed them back into motion after only 5 minutes of rest. "We almost there," became Sarah's mantra, a mantra that was countered with "yes" on 6 occasions. With aching calves and a heart ready to burst out of her chest, Sarah grabbed Lolita's arm and said, "Where in the heck are we going?" "Yeah," said Alba, panting. "I thought you said the place was close by. We could have hailed a taxi." "Trust me," said Lolita, checking her phone. "We're a few steps away." "I hope this is worth it," said Sarah, "because if it's a crappy surprise, I'm going to be calling Sonny and telling him he gave me a heart attack for nothing." Lolita latched onto Sarah's wrist and said, "Keep moving, you out-of-shape American." Sarah reluctantly obeyed and walked another 2 heart-distressing minutes. If Lolita hadn't come to a halt in front of 2 large black metal doors, she would have collapsed. "Is this somebody's house?" said Sarah, leaning against a pink wall and taking a sip from a water bottle she had in her purse. She offered the bottle to Alba, who was busy fanning herself and allowing airflow into her blouse. "I think it's part of somebody's house," said Lolita. Lolita put her hand on the door. "Shouldn't we knock first?" said Sarah, holding Lolita back. "Give us time to catch our breath," said Alba. Lolita pursed her lips and tapped her foot, allowing only 30 seconds to pass before pushing the door open. When Sarah saw giant puppets inside the building, she pulled her head back in confusion. "Ta-da!" said Alba, spreading out her arms as if she had just finished a Broadway showstopper. "I don't get it," said Sarah, clutching her small leather purse against her bosom. "It's your surprise, sis," said Lolita. "I don't understand," said Sarah. "That's because you haven't stepped inside," said Alba. "Go ahead, you go first." Sarah toggled her gaze from Alba to Lolita. "I feel kind of bad just barging in." "We obviously made reservations," said Lolita. "Don't make excuses, just get in there." Sarah shrugged her shoulders and looked up at the sky. "This better be worth it, Sonny." Sarah cautiously stepped into a long room made up of white concrete walls with blue trimmings. Dingy plastic tables stretched out in the center, cluttered with spaghetti-thin wires and scraps of brown paper and various-sized scissors. Different colored paint bottles and smudged containers with paintbrushes sat on the far end of the tables. In a back corner, tall A-frame wooden structures that resembled rib cages were neatly propped up, waiting for papier-mâché heads and busts. "If I'm going to give an educated guess," said Sarah, "this has to be the workshop where mojigangas are made." "Where'd you get that idea?" said Lolita, extending her hand toward the colorful puppets standing along the back wall. "They're kind of creepy when you see them lifeless and just standing there," said Alba. Sarah nodded. "I suddenly feel like knocking those grotesque grins from their giant faces." "Y'all should back off," said Lolita. Their eeriness is what gives them their beauty. So, said Alba with a tilted head, what kind of call is Sunny going to get? Sarah rested the left side of her face in her left hand and looked lost in discernment. Don't be too hard on him, said Lolita. He said that after you saw that travel show, you kept going on and on about wanting to visit a workshop. That's very true, said Sarah. I just never thought he'd take me up on it. Well, here you are, said Alba, standing in a workshop surrounded by mojigangas, all courtesy of your devoted husband. He will definitely get a call of gratitude, said Sarah, and a little something when I get home. A brown man with scruffy black hair came from an adjacent room wearing a black apron. He smiled, wiped his hands on his apron, and approached them. I hope we're not too early, said Alba. Lolita, said the man, taking Alba's right hand. I'm Alba. This is Lolita, who bowed. And this is Sarah, who gave a timid wave. Ah, yes, said the man, shaking Sarah's hand. I am so glad to finally meet you. I've heard so much about you. Do you prefer English or Español? English, por favor, said Sarah. No problem, said the man. We can do English. I also speak a little German if you'd like. Oh, no, said Sarah. Only English for us. We've been in the United States for 3 generations, and our Spanish is limited. I don't think he needs to know our life story, said Lolita. I hope you can excuse the mess, said the man, collecting wadded paper from a table and tossing it into a trash can. I am always working on new mojigangas, so I don't have much time to tidy up the place. You look kind of familiar, said Sarah, rubbing her chin and studying the man's face. The man tilted his head to show his profile. How so? I've seen you somewhere, said Sarah, squinting her eyes to get a better look. Duh, said Lolita. He's the guy from the travel show. This is why Sunny picked this place. You better check your eyes when we get home. Now I remember, said Sarah with eyes aglow. It is you. Wow, I just love your work. I told my husband this guy's a real artist. He's got real talent. Gracias, said the man, giving a slight bow. Gracias. I do my best. I love what I do. And isn't that what counts the most? I hope we're not taking too much time away from your work, said Sarah. Of course not, said the man. I'm so glad you could make it. Your sisters told me you came all the way from Texas just to see my little workshop. Texas isn't too far, said Sarah. I'm sure you get visitors from all over the world. I've had visitors from as far as China, said the man with pride. Why wouldn't they come? Said Alba. Your puppets are amazing. At least we think so. Do you create them all on your own? My children help me every now and then, said the man, but mostly I work alone. Most of my time is spent waiting for the glue and paper to dry. They look so much bigger in real life, said Sarah. That's the point of the mojigangas, said the man, lifting one of the puppet's flimsy arms. We show an exaggerated, some people say, burlesque, version of the people and characters the puppets portray. Mine are always más o menos 4 metros. People get angry if I make them any smaller. Kind of like ones you see at Mardi Gras, said Lolita. Exactly, said the man. And they're not just used on this feast day. The mojigangas are rented by novios before the day of their wedding and accompany the couple until dawn. You can say they start off the couple's new life together. A new life that is filled with an amplified love, as amplified as these big giant heads. Interesting, said Sarah. "I never heard of that." "Are you ready to try one on?" said the man. "Say what?" said Sarah, clutching her chest. "Try one on." The man turned to Lolita and Alba. "That's what you wanted, correct?" "Correct," said Alba. "So is this my real surprise?" said Sarah. "I'm going to wring Sunny's neck when I get home." "We're all going to put one on," said Lolita. "So don't make a big deal." "No need to worry," said the man. "I've had 70-year-old women put them on." "That makes me feel so much better," said Sarah. "It's all about balance," said the man. "Once you get your balance, you start feeling comfortable. And once you get comfortable, you can join the procession." "And the surprises just keep coming," said Sarah, shaking her head. "You don't have to do it if you don't want to," said Alba. "Are you freaking kidding me?" said Lolita. "Didn't you hear the man? 70-year-old women put them on. 70-year-old women dance around. Come on, Sarah, live a little." "Put another way," said Alba. "It's something we've never done before, and probably will never do again, so we should take advantage." "Your sisters are right," said the man. "You have been brought here for a reason. The mojigangas have been waiting for you all your life." Sarah chewed on her index finger and looked lost in an inner struggle. She finally said, "Maybe you're right. Maybe I should live in the moment, for Sunny and the kids." "For yourself," said the man. "Do it for yourself." "So which one do I put on?" said Sarah, eyeing the different puppets. "There's too many to choose from." "I suggest you let them choose you," said the man. "How do I do that?" said Sarah. "You get closer," said the man. "You listen, and before you know it, they will become a part of you." "A part of me?" said Sarah. "And don't be surprised if they speak to you," said the man. "Way down in your soul." What an odd thing to say, thought Sarah. Probably his way of making tourists believe the experience was worth paying for. Sarah gazed up at the standing puppets and brushed their garments with her hand. A fat puppet with a top hat made her grimace. That one for sure, out of the question. She shook her head at a Katrina that had yellow tassels dangling off a wide brim hat. She moved on to Frida Kahlo. How many Frida Kahlos were already in the parade? No originality in that choice. A bride in a white dress and a white veil caught her attention and made her stop. "That's a nice one," said Alba. "Nah," said Sarah, looking at a giant groom in a tuxedo. "Dressing up as a bride without Sunny doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But yeah, it's nice." "So you almost made a decision?" said Lolita. "We don't got all day." "I'm still deciding," said Sarah. "I hope you're deciding too." "I've already made my choice," said Lolita. "Oh yeah?" said Sarah. "Which one?" "You pick first," replied Lolita. Sarah puffed the bangs out of her face. "Let's see," she mumbled to herself as she progressed down the row of puppets. "Which one of you is calling me? Which one of you wants to tell me something?" A long, flowery blue dress blew against her cheek, though there was no wind in the room, not even a fan. She looked up and saw the face of a giant old woman sporting a gray bun. The eyes were large and wise, almost like an owl's. She liked that the grin was not as wide as the grins on the other puppets. That told Sarah the old woman was not fake. She had lived life, and it was not all sunshine and roses. Sarah touched the old woman's hand and felt an instant connection. "This one," said Sarah. "I'll wear this one." "La viejita?" said the man. "Excellent choice." "You want that one?" said Lolita. "Why not Wonder Woman? Or a clown? You like clowns." "When have I ever liked clowns?" said Sarah. "Sarah never liked clowns," said Alba. She always hid behind me at the circus." "Actually, I'm not surprised you want the old woman," said Lolita. "What do you mean by that?" said Sarah. "Don't start," said Alba. "Old woman Sarah," said Lolita. "That name fits you perfectly." "Oh yeah?" said Sarah. "And which one are you going to pick? Don't tell me. Let me guess. Frida Kahlo. You kind of have that unibrow look going for you. And you tend to like gorditos." Lolita chuckled. "I think everybody knows which one I'm going to pick." "Don't tell me," said Alba. Alba grabbed a dress decorated with sunflowers, which belonged to the Katrina with yellow tassels. "Yep, that's the one," said Lolita. "And what about you, Alba?" said Sarah. "Please don't say the angel." "And why not?" said Alba, taken aback. "Don't I look angelic to you?" Alba fluttered her eyes and smiled. "Well, don't I?" "I don't usually make angels," said the man. "Somebody paid me for it and they never picked it up. So you can say it was made especially for you. You're the first one who will try it on." "You see, girls," said Alba, "God brought me here for a reason." "Yeah, to make us gag," said Lolita. "God brought us all here for a reason," said Alba, more serious in tone. "Can we just get this over with?" said Sarah. "Before I back out." The man and her sisters helped put the bust of the old woman over Sarah's body, which required a harness over her shoulders. "Not so fast," said Sarah, already squirming and disliking the darkness and lack of space. "Let me get used to it." The man then pulled down the dress and adjusted the fabric to take out the wrinkles. "How does that feel?" said the man. "Can you breathe okay?" Sarah's eyes and mouth were visible through a tiny opening in front of the old woman's dress. "I guess I'm okay. I just hope I don't get claustrophobic." "It's not too heavy," said Alba. "It's manageable," said Sarah, wriggling in place. "Stand still so I can take a picture," said Lolita. Sarah smiled for the camera she couldn't see. After posing for 30 seconds, she said, "Can I stop smiling now?" "Oh, yeah, I forgot," said Lolita. "I already sent them to Sonny, and he's already liked them." When Lolita and the man fit the angel over Alba, Alba shuddered. "I don't know if I'm going to fit." "One size fits all," said the man. "How do I look?" said Alba. "Like the ugliest angel I've ever seen," said Lolita, gazing up at the crooked nose and bulging eyes. "Why do you have to be so mean?" said Alba. "You look fine to me," said Sarah, peeking out of her rectangular opening. "I'm probably the one who looks ridiculous." "I think that's the point," said Lolita. "We're supposed to look ridiculous." "But you're still going to have fun," said the man. "The object is to have fun. Join the festivities. Dance, sing, not as yourself, as la viejita, as la Katrina, as el ángel." Sarah saw the man easily place the Katrina over Lolita as if he had done it 1,000 times without any help. "Can you take us a photo?" said Lolita to the man. "Of course," said the man. "Oh, crap," said Lolita. "I can't get to my phone. Can anyone get to their phone?" In trying to dig through her pant pockets, Sarah rushed her steps and bumped into Lolita, who bumped into Alba. "Me lleva," said Alba, as she lost her balance and crashed into the other puppets. The man caught them before they tumbled over. "Watch it, will ya?" said Lolita. "Sorry," said Sarah. "I don't think this is going to work. I can barely see in this thing." "No excuses," said Lolita. "Just look straight ahead," said Alba. "Look at me. Look how straight I walk." Sarah heard a thud and a "híjole" from the man. She turned to see Alba against a table and paint bottles spilling blue and green onto the floor. The man quickly turned the bottles upside and used a dirty towel to wipe off the surface. "I'm so sorry," said Alba. "We'll pay for that," said Sarah. "Please add it to our bill." "If Alba doesn't stop moving, we're going to wind up having to buy the whole workshop," said Lolita. "Here," said the man, gently nudging Alba's puppet. "Let me lead you outside." Sarah and Lolita carefully followed, their giant heads bottlenecking at the front door. "Age before beauty," said Lolita, moving aside to let Sarah pass. Once the three sisters were outside, the man said, "The key is balance. As long as you got balance, you will have no problem. Another important thing, you must keep moving. Always keep moving." Sarah took a deep breath as the man stood in front of her and waved. "Do you happen to have the time?" said Sarah. "Let's see," said the man. "It is now 5:23 p.m. "Thank you," said Sarah. 5:23 p.m. If she was back home, she and her family would probably be hitting up Wendy's for dinner. Or they would be lounging on the couch, munching on popcorn and binging on Pixar movies. If she was home, she would be cuddled in Sunny's warm arms, her children nestled at their sides. 5:23 p.m. She couldn't back out now. She could do this. If 70-year-old women could do it, so could she. She couldn't let Sunny or her sisters down. They organized this for her. It took effort, planning, love. Today was a day of fun, a day where no one knew her, where no one could see her. She was hidden, safe, protected by this old woman's shell. Sarah puffed out her chest and took a full step forward. The step was so successful that she took another and then another, each step in perfect balance. "Hey, I think I can walk now," said Sarah. She sped up her pace but lost her footing and crashed into Lolita. "Stay in your own lane, old woman," said Lolita, pulling away. "Out of the way, you old bag of bones," said Alba, her puppet leaning into Lolita. "Make way for the beautiful angel." Alba stumbled over a dip in the sidewalk, but was luckily caught by the man. "Please be careful," said the man. "I feed my children with these mojigangas." The man took them to the middle of the street. Sarah could only see parked cars and yellow walls and no pedestrians. "What do we do now?" asked Sarah. "A band will be by soon," said the man. "Once you hear the music, you simply join the procession with everyone else." "I don't see anyone else," said Sarah, striving to see her surroundings through the tiny opening. "Oh, they're around," said the man. "When you join the procession, that's when you see them." "I don't know about this," said Sarah to her sisters. "My back's starting to itch." "Relax," said Alba. "It's just your nerves. Once you start dancing, you'll forget all about the itch." "What if I hit some kid?" said Sarah. "Then he deserved it," said Lolita, "for getting in the way." "If it makes you feel better," said Alba, "you can stay in the middle." "Maybe I should just stay here by the door," said Sarah, "so I won't get in anyone's way." "Please put your worries aside," said the man. "Just let your spirit go. Become one with the mojiganga. Let it guide your movements." Tubas and drums unexpectedly vibrated in Sarah's ears. She felt acid rising in her throat. She wanted so badly to wriggle out of the harness and crawl out of the puppet. Why did she let herself get coerced into doing this ridiculous ritual? She wished she had never seen the travel show. She wished Sunny had never bought the plane tickets. She wished her sisters had never agreed to bring her to San Miguel de Allende. But it was too late. She was next in the roller coaster line, and there was no turning back. She felt a nudge. At least she thought it was a nudge. Or maybe it was a tug from somewhere within her, pulling her onto the street, into the procession. Balance was no longer an issue. She walked straight and tall behind musicians and other puppets. Her intention was not to dance. Her intention was to simply walk and maybe release a little sway every now and then. The music, however, seeped into her skin and muscles, gifting her legs with a rhythm she had never felt before. She swayed and twirled and completed a full spin. She bounced and kicked, surprising even herself. "Is anyone filming me?" she thought. "I want Sunny to see me." She no longer saw the world through the tiny opening in the dress. People now marched below her, puny all of a sudden, speaking in squeaky voices, voices that belonged to mice. The voices evoked a grin on her face, a grin the size of Texas. "You're doing good," said Alba on her right, waving long spaghetti arms. "It's actually kind of fun," said Lolita, dancing on Sarah's left. The old woman danced between the angel and the Katrina, to the applause and whistles of bystanders. Maybe they danced for minutes, maybe they danced for hours. Sarah lost track of time and place as she traveled up and down the narrow streets. She followed the sound of the music, a music that filled her with energy and purpose. Maybe she followed it too blindly. She didn't know at what point she managed to fit into a tunnel. She didn't know why the procession took such a strange route. Maybe it was a shortcut to the main plaza. She stopped dancing once there was complete darkness, and the music faded away. "Alba," she whispered. "Lolita, are you there?" No response came from her sisters. Silence and darkness surrounded her, filling her with an immediate urge to crawl out of the puppet. She felt for the harness, but there was none to be found. Instead, she touched her own shoulders and realized there was no longer a papier-mâché bust hanging around her body. "Alba!" she shouted. "Lolita! Why can't I hear you? Why can't I see you?" A bright light shocked her eyes, causing her to lift her arm to shield them. As her eyes gradually got used to the light, she found herself wandering into a doctor's exam room. She shuddered, embraced herself, and rubbed her biceps. Why do waiting rooms have to be so cold? Staring her in the face was a poster of Understanding Breast Cancer and its depiction of a woman's inner breast area. Did I hit my head or something? Where's Alba and Lolita? With a light tap against a wooden door, a white-bearded man entered carrying a medical chart. He flipped over the pages but didn't seem to read them. "Sarah, I really wished your husband could have been here." "I'm not sure where my husband is at this moment," said Sarah, now seated on the exam table, not recalling when she actually sat down. "Well, the results are just as I suspected," said the doctor. "You have breast cancer." "This isn't real," said Sarah. "I'm dreaming or hallucinating, one of the two." "I know this is hard for you to accept," said the doctor. "This is why I wish your husband was here with you, for emotional support." "Hello out there," said Sarah, reaching for the ceiling. "Alba, Lolita, if you're there, wake me up. I need to get out of this place." "Who are you talking to?" said the doctor. "It's only me and you in my office." "Look, doctor," said Sarah. "I am not sure where you came from my subconscious or my imagination, because I've never seen you in my life. What you are saying makes no sense. I do not have cancer. I am perfectly fine. Just because one day I was out of breath, one day, doesn't mean I'm sick." "I know this is hard for you to accept," said the doctor, but my team will do our very best to get you through the process. Nowadays, there are various meds and procedures that can help you overcome this disease. We will send you to the best specialists in the field." "Look, I'm just 32 years old," said Sarah. "Jackie's 5. Sammy's 3. There's no way I can have cancer. I have to see them through college, do you understand?" "We'll have to run some more tests for sure," said the doctor. "Possibly open you up to see how advanced the cancer is." "Open me up?" exclaimed Sarah. "This is not making any sense. Wake up, Sarah. Wake up." She slapped herself on both cheeks. "Calm down, Sarah," said the doctor, grabbing her wrists. "This is not going to help you." "Sonny," said Sarah. "I want to talk to Sonny. Where is Sonny?" A sudden vacuum sucked her down into the exam table. She tumbled into a spinning vortex, the faces of her children popping out at her, their voices repeating, "Is Mommy going to die?" Before she could throw up from the vertigo, she stopped and lay on a flat, hard table. Her children's faces were replaced by people with medical masks, people with scalpels, scissors, syringes. She looked for Sonny in the bright lamps hanging over her, but he was nowhere to be found. Where was Sonny? Why wasn't he with her? A breathing mask pressed onto her face and obscured her view. "Sonny," she murmured, as the lights blurred and disappeared. Moments later, a snapping of fingers ignited her consciousness, forcing her to look into an oval mirror. "Not my beautiful hair," was her first thought. She sat slumped in a chair, barely able to keep her head up, staring at a bald woman with dark circles below her eyes and yellowish skin tightly wrapped around her bones. Her sisters stood on each side, holding and caressing her hands. "Where have you been?" said Sarah, her throat hurting as the words came out. "And where is Sonny? Why isn't he here?" To her surprise, Sonny's voice seeped into the room. "I'm right here, honey." She squinted her eyes. "But I can't see you." A gray haze hovered in front of her, revealing a man's chest and arms while keeping his face hidden. "Why don't you show yourself?" said Sarah weakly. "Then you'll see my pain," said Sonny from the haze. "I don't want the sight of my pain to be your last memory." "Sonny, please," said Sarah, reaching out. "I need to see you." "Please don't make me show myself," insisted Sonny. "I need to see you," begged Sarah. "As you wish," said Sonny. A giant head violently popped out of the haze, showing off a terrible giant grin with giant sharp teeth. The giant mouth opened and swallowed Sarah's head. She screamed and flailed her arms as the mouth slowly absorbed her shoulders and her upper back. "You have stopped dancing," said a man's voice. "You need to keep moving. You have gotten stuck and only movement will bring you out of the darkness." She wept and fought against the confinement that strangled her and restricted her legs from moving. "Help me, God," she managed to say. "Lead me back to the light." A surge of energy shocked her body into motion. "Sarah," came Alba's voice. "You okay in there?" Sarah swayed and twirled and shot out of the dark tunnel with lightning speed, finding herself back in the procession, surrounded by loud music and other giant puppets. Out of breath and bathed in sweat, the old woman tipped over. Lucky for her, the angel and the Katrina were there to hold her up. "Lean on me," said Lolita, trying to prop Sarah next to the wall of someone's house. "I think it's better if you rest on me," said Alba. "I'm stronger." "Let her make her own choice," said Lolita. "And by the way, I'm stronger and younger." "Just get me out of this thing," said Sarah, already hoisting the harness off of her shoulders. "Careful," said Alba. "Wait for somebody to help you." Sarah flung the puppet shell off her body and watched it fall limp on the sidewalk. Her hair dripped with sweat as she hunched over and hurled green liquid out of her mouth. "You don't look so good," said Lolita, pressing her eyes against the small opening in her puppet's dress. "I better go get help," said Alba. I'm okay," said Sarah, catching her breath. "I just need to rest for a minute." Alba in her angel puppet leaned over. "Something happened, didn't it?" "You saw life the way it really is, didn't you?" said Lolita, her skull face hovering over Sarah. "I don't know what I saw," said Sarah, "but it felt real. It looked real. But I hope to God it will never be real." "What did you see?" said Alba. Sarah told them about the doctor's office and the cancer diagnosis, and about being operated on and about being on the verge of death. She left out the part about being swallowed by a giant puppet. "What does it all mean?" said Sarah. "It probably means nothing," said Alba. "Or it can mean everything," said Lolita. "Why in the heck did I go through with this?" said Sarah, pacing the sidewalk. "I should have stuck to my guns and sat this one out, like I always do. If you sit it out, you don't get into problems. You don't bring unnecessary pain into your life." "You want to hear something strange?" said Lolita. "I also saw something." "Like what?" said Alba. "I saw myself in a hospital standing over a patient on life support." "Are you sure it wasn't me?" said Sarah. "It was definitely not you," said Lolita. "The patient had a mustache. He was someone I had never seen before. We were alone. I guess the guy had no family or friends, because I was the one who pulled the plugs out. I am the one who turned off all the medical equipment. Before you knew it, the room was filled with that long beep as he flatlined." "How could you do such a thing?" said Alba. "But he wasn't the only one," continued Lolita. "I moved to different rooms and did the same thing. For some reason I felt good about it, like I was doing them a favor, like dying was the right thing for them to do." "That's a terrible image," said Alba. "Terrible image. I had quite a different experience." "Here we go," said Lolita, rolling her eyes. "Don't tell me. You saved a litter of kittens from a burning house. Or maybe she sacrificed herself to save humanity from an oncoming asteroid," said Sarah. "Nothing quite as dramatic," said Alba. "I simply saw myself feeding a hospice patient, praying over her and telling her not to give up." "It wasn't me, was it?" said Sarah. "It was definitely not you," said Alba. "She was a young black woman, and I told her you have to fight death. Don't give in to depression. Don't let people take away your hope." Sarah banged her palm against the wall. "None of this makes sense. What's the meaning of it? Why would each one of us have such different visions, if that's what you want to call them?" Lolita stood tall as the Katrina and said, "Maybe it's a wake-up call. We're all going to die, and we should learn to embrace death." Alba's angel puppet leaned into the Katrina and confronted her, giant eye to giant eye. "I think you meant to say, we should embrace life." "I meant death," said Lolita. "And I say life," said Alba. The angel and the Katrina pressed hard against each other, each one trying to overpower the other and knock the other down. Sarah finally got between them and spread them apart. "Oh my God," said Sarah, dissolving into chuckles. "What's so funny?" said Lolita. "We're a bunch of morons," said Sarah. "Why do you say that?" said Alba. "Look at us," said Sarah. 3 grown women marching in some dumb parade, wearing these ridiculous puppets, and fighting over some crazy hallucinations we just experienced. When I see that puppet maker, I'm gonna tell him, "What kind of chemical are you using to put these things together? They sent us on some wacko mind trip." "I guess it is pretty silly to be taking these visions seriously," said Alba. "Maybe we should take these things off before the brain damage is permanent," said Lolita, though it might be too late for Alba. "Very funny," said Alba. "Sarah, help me out of this thing before it gets any later, and we still got to carry these things all the way back." Sarah huffed as she struggled to get Alba out of the puppet. "Don't pull so hard," said Alba, wedging herself out of the shell and tearing a few threads off her blouse. "I don't think the puppet wanted to come off," said Sarah. "Well, it's off now," said Alba, fanning herself with her hand. "Let's get Lolita out and head back before dark." Sarah told Lolita to bend over so it could be easier to pull the Katrina off her body. "Don't ruin the hat and the tassels," said Lolita. Sarah and Alba grabbed the Katrina by the sides and carefully slid the shell from Lolita's body. Just as Sarah said, "I guess we should be getting back," she and her sisters gasped. They were standing in front of the black metal doors of the Mojiganga workshop. Sarah instinctively glanced at her cell phone. 5:23 p.m. That couldn't be. Absolutely no time had passed. "Why did you take off the mojigangas?" said the owner of the workshop. "The band will soon be here, and you will have the most unforgettable experience of your life." The sisters looked at each other with widened eyes. "Pay the man," said Sarah. "Pay him as fast as you can." Alba dished out 2,000 pesos and didn't wait for change. They propped the puppets against the metal doors, thanked the man for a lovely time, and rushed to the end of the street. "Anyone feel like a margarita?" said Alba. "I'll need 2 to forget this day," said Sarah. "Just give me the whole tequila bottle," said Lolita, "and this whole Mojiganga incident will be a distant memory." The 3 sisters turned the corner and never looked back.